Bring back begging, singing to women. Honestly, I think that ship has sailed. Judging by that image, and that looks like late 80s, early 90s, that's LB Sure. I used to have the biggest crush on him night and day. Don't judge me, y'all. But men begging, singing to women, in a sense, reflected with society at that time. Women were still receptive to wanting to be a wife. Even if they wanted to be a career woman, at the back of their mind, they still thought to themselves, I want a husband. I want to be a wife. I often say that the late 80s into the 90s, it was still traditional to a degree, but it was slowly turning towards the career woman, the independent woman. You know, you look at shows like Living Single and Girlfriends. You know, Girlfriends came, I think, the early 2000s, though. You had Martin with Pam and Gina. They were career women, but they still had their men. So, yes, judging by that picture, late 80s, early 90s, the women were different. Women from that day were and are different from the women of today. I'm Gen X. Late 80s, I was maybe at 20 years old. So I started seeing a shift towards the independent woman somewhere in the 90s. But it ultimately got worse, I would say, in the 2010s as side chicks, loose women, careers, but don't want a husband. I started seeing that shift 15 or so years ago. So men begging and singing to women, that day is gone. That ship has sailed. Again, during that time, the late 80s, early 90s, it still reflected in society. Society today, you have the Megan Thee Stallions, you have the Sexy Reds, you have the Nicki Minaj's. Those types of women would have been considered the fun time women of yesteryear. Those were the women that men could play with, but they did not take home to their mother. And that's something that you don't even hear anymore. You know, men back in the day, they used to say, that's a woman who you just play with and then you toss her aside. Maybe they didn't say that, and then you were the woman, okay, I could take you home to my mother. Those days are basically gone on a grander scale. So while in theory, men begging, singing to women sounds wonderful, in reality, it would not work in today's world because the women are not the same. And neither are the men. According to the women, neither are the men. And that goes into another point of view, but that would make my video longer than I want it to be. Women are ultimately raising these men out here. And by their own admission, a lot of times, they don't think the father is important. So there are a lot of moving parts as to why men are not able to beg, sing to women anymore. Because women, in my opinion, are not deserving and they won't be receptive. They're going to want a particular type of man. Average man, they're just going to toss aside. You know, he's got to be Tupac in a suit, as people say. So what's going on in society now with women? Everything is transactional. I remember there was a saying, I would say late 90s, very late 90s, early 2000s, Netflix and chill. And it used to be about men and women courting towards marriage. But once women decided, hey, I could be sexually free, I don't have to be married. I ain't pressed to be married. Now they say marriage is not a goal. But back then it was, I ain't pressed to be married. So who exactly would men be begging, singing to? Because again, the women pre-90s are not the women of today. And that's my topic.